Okay, then we start with the first presentation, and that is Professor Anatoly Burmistrov from University of Nordland, who will tell us about knowledge creation and knowledge transfer. University of Nordland's cooperation with Taras Shevchenko National University of Kyiv, achievements, future plans, and new joint programs.
This is a program we have created, I think around 2010, 11. Started working with it, and it was a project between University of Nordland, Tavrida National University, Kyiv National University, and Norwegian Institute of International Affairs. The idea was to create cooperation, both education and also research in the area of sustainable management. Our universities have been affected by what happened in Crimea, of course, because Tavrida National University couldn't be any longer a partner, because we cannot cooperate with non-Ukrainian university. And it means that on one hand side, it's given us opportunity to redirect our efforts, more efforts towards cooperation with Kyiv National University. In my presentation, you can see some pictures. And this is a picture of our modern university in Nordland, and the happy students who came visiting us to joint courses in Buda. This is example, of course, business practice in Norway. Let me see. So what we have done, I think we have been doing very much, and especially education. When you think about international cooperation, you need to start about harmonization of the curriculum and quality assurance systems. So I think this is an achievement we have now, because courses which are provided by university here in Kyiv will be approved at Buda Graduate School of Business, and the opposite. So I think this is a very important part of any international cooperation. It means that the students going to Buda, taking semester, will come back, and their courses are recognized in the home university. And the opposite is also true. Students going to Ukraine will come back with courses recognized as a part of the curriculum. And particularly these courses have been linked to the joint degree program on sustainable management, and I will show a bit later how it looks like. We have increased student mobility, and mobility has been both ways. I think this is very often the problem. Ukrainian students are very like to go to Norway, but not many students, Norwegian students, actually go to Ukraine, especially to take one semester. But I think in our case, we have been achieving this, not for the whole semester yet, but many students came for short-term courses like business practice in Ukraine. So we have visited many enterprises, and students from Norway have learned a lot about challenges of doing business in Ukraine. There have been increasing research cooperation, joint publications, and also we have a developing network. Just to tell you that on December 9th, we are going to have a big conference in Buda, and there will be, I think, more than 13 universities present at this conference. And this is not part of this project, but a project which is another project which I hope we will hear later today about retraining military officers. So here are the examples of our network meetings and happy students from Taras Shevchenko National University with Frode Meldemik, who was, I think, teaching at that time, and some beautiful picture from northern Norway. So here we have a curriculum, how it was last year. This year we have changed it a bit, but the idea is that the students who will take the joint program has to take 1 year in common. So here actually it should be Ukraine. You can see I discovered a mistake. So curriculum built like this, that 1 year is a join. And what is also interesting, that students could possibly have some master thesis writing in Norway, Ukraine, or actually other places around the world. So these are the courses for the third semester. You can see that these courses have been approved by our quality assurance systems. And these courses, if students, Norwegian students go to Kyiv and take these courses, they will be recognized as a part of the joint degree. Here are examples of students visiting Norway and also Ukraine. You can see that I think this was pictures here are from two pictures below are from Etera, and in the middle is from the aviation enterprise. What was the name? Famous Ukrainian enterprise. Antonov. Yeah, Antonov Enterprise. Yeah. So here is some statistics, and you can see that a lot of traffic have been going both ways. So I'm an accountant, professor in accounting. So this is I like to calculate and provide numbers. So we have around 208 persons have been involved in going back and forth in mobility. And you can see that a substantial number are students, also PhD students, and also faculty. And of course, the biggest problem is, as I see, it's that number of people going to Ukraine and is not so much. But I hope that with time we will actually increase the number of students from Buda, Norway, going to Ukraine to take joint programs. And you can see here's the picture from Minister of Foreign Affairs, Brenda, visiting Kyiv National Universities, meeting with students who have been in Buda and actually asking them questions about how it's to study in Norway. And I think some of the students are present here, so I hope that they had actually very good answers to him. So what is the future? What is the next direction? I think we have developed a very solid platform with Kyiv National University. We know how to recognize each other's courses. We know how to build joint programs. And we feel that probably we need to redirect our master programs towards more needs of Ukrainian society. And I think, as we hear today, both prime ministers addressed challenges Ukraine faces, and I think one of the is regarding problems of integrating into European community, implementing EU-Ukraine Association Agreement. And one area where we can contribute from Buda is particular area of public sector finance, accounting, budgeting, because it's the area where we have well-developed competence. So it means that we are already now trying to make plans for a joint program where we put more focus on public sector. And at the same time, we also would like to focus more not only on educating younger generation of students, being able to take their future jobs in the governments, both in Norway and Ukraine, but also competence improvement of existing public servants, government officials, on both local and municipal level. So I think I will stop here because my time is almost up, and open for questions. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. National Erasmus Plus office, formerly Tempus office of Ukraine. I have two questions, if I may.
Yep.
My first question is why Norwegian students do not want to come to Ukraine. Have you started this question? And the second question, you mentioned the network. Can you give an example of what are the benefits of this network, what the network has done already? Thank you.
I think the problem of Norwegian students very often is that they know little about Ukraine, unfortunately. I think they also, now they know more, but I think they're also scared. And I think there are also some skepticism whether we should send students to the country. So I think this is something to do with general understanding of Ukraine, far away. But I think when the students are there, we had an incredible experience. Students say that it's a fantastic country. It's a lot of resources, a lot of business opportunities. So I think we need kind of to promote Ukraine more and more for our students. And I think here we need to, I think it's not only for our University of Nordland or for University of Stavanger or Agder, it's jointly, I think, and I think we discussed with CU, that CU could also probably, we all together actually will benefit jointly to promote Ukraine as a destination for taking education. When it comes to networking, so it's also interesting that this network has only been established since September. I already have visited some universities because this network was related to retraining military personnel, where Buda Graduate School of Business and Haino Center participates and give education through some courses. And I visited the University of Chernivtsi, I visited Ivano-Frankivsk, and actually we have been in Chernihiv, but we visited a university which was not a part of the network yet. Because we don't have any activities there. So I think the benefit will be that we would like to see how, in what areas universities actually are, have their strengths, and how we could benefit from it, and how other partners in Norway could benefit from it. So we can kind of be opening the window for opportunities. So, but they don't have yet any experience, and they're actually very interesting question because university asking a lot of questions. So,
any more questions, comments? We have 2 minutes more left. Or everything was so clear that there are no questions, no remarks. Then I thank you very much, Anatoly, and we have gifts. One is a gift looking ahead, and that is a calendar. The other is something to give you energy to work with this and to continue. And you will all who are presenting, you will have the same gift. So Norwegian chocolate and a calendar.
wow.
Thank you very much.
And we have next presentation. I would like to introduce some verbs for presentation. Vladimir Rubtsov. He is the president of International Foundation for Social Adaptation. This adaptation is working a long time with Norway, and he has a nice presentation about activity.
Это уникальная программа, которая была начата в 2003 году. В 2003 году и имела целью социальной адаптации военнослужащих и членов их семей в виде профессиональной переподготовки в объеме 500 академических часов, психологической реабилитации, оказание содействия в их трудоустройстве, создание малого бизнеса и организации собственных предприятий. За 20 лет вооруженные силы Украины катастрофически сокращались с миллиона почти до 122 тысяч в 2017 году. И проблема адаптации военнослужащих в гражданское общество стояла очень остро. К сожалению, государство не выделяло на это средств, и проблему решали вот такие международные программы. Основная из них программа – это норвежский проект, который мы выполняем совместно. Идея выполнения проекта заключалась в следующем. На первом этапе все молодые военнослужащие, офицеры, окончившие военные учебные заведения, они все патриоты, они все счастливы до тех пор, пока они не доходили до вершины своей карьеры. Они понимали, что жилья у них не будет, пенсии достойной не будет, работы в гражданской области у них не будет. И вот от великой радости патриотов они превращаются в грустных, весьма, так сказать, бесперспективных, хотя и уже не очень молодых, обычно увольняющиеся, те, кто увольняются, им возраст до 40 лет. То есть они оказываются практически без средств существования. Это, безусловно, психологический стресс, отсутствие друзей в гражданском обществе, которые могли бы им помочь, потому что специфика службы вооруженных сил, она, так сказать, характерна тем, что люди служат в замкнутом пространстве, в своей среде. Безработица реально от 9 до 25% у нас в Украине, в особенности для людей старше 40 лет. То есть реально шансов трудоустройства практически нет. Ну и вот действительно очень резкий, сильный психологический стресс. Практически основная масса офицеров и членов семей не видит своей дальнейшей перспективы в гражданской жизни. С 2003 по 2014 год совместный проект выполнялся в Крыму и частично на востоке в Запорожской области и в Киеве. И действительно проект был очень успешный, очень перспективный. В этом году мы вынуждены были его закрыть в Крыму. Причем это единственный проект, который работал до последнего, пока воинские части выводились из Крыма, пока началась аннексия, то есть даже в окруженных, так сказать, военных городках продолжались курсы. То есть по договоренности с силовыми структурами это, так сказать, курсы продолжались. Мы их закончили. И вышли вместе с 4,5 тысячами офицеров на юг Украины. И с осени мы работаем вот здесь. Это 17 городов, это 13 новых университетов. Проект был начат через месяц после подготовительной работы. То есть практически мобильно перешел в совершенно новый регион Украины. И сейчас участниками проекта в этом году будут 1537 человек. Это рекорд, это мощнее, чем все проекты международные вместе взятые. Это имеется в виду НАТО проект, проект ОБСЕ. То есть это самый сильный, самый амбициозный, это уже не моя оценка, это оценка Министерства социальной политики и Министерства обороны. Это самый успешный, самый эффективный проект в этой области. Начинали мы проект по норвежской модели, которая была предложена нашими норвежскими партнерами. Ключевыми элементами здесь являлись часть образовательная, бизнес-администрирование, которое преподавали представители, профессоры из университета Нурланда. Это часть их участия конкретная в проекте. И специализация на курсах. Почему 500 часов, почему 3 месяца? Потому что по действующему законодательству в Украине, если курсы продолжаются 500 часов, то офицер имеет право участвовать в проектах таких на последнем году своей службы. Вот и все. Если законодательство изменится, то можно было бы расширить эту идею. Затем мы доработали совместно с норвежскими партнерами эту модель. Практически в течение вот этих 3, а далее 12 месяцев в течение года мы осуществляем не только переподготовку, но и психологическую реабилитацию, содействие трудоустройству, создание собственного бизнеса и правовую адаптацию. То есть эти 3 месяца, в течение 3 месяцев на военнослужащего, на его семью оказывается массированное воздействие и со стороны университета, и со стороны партнеров. Это и службы занятости, и тренинговые центры, и ассоциации предпринимателей. То есть это получается, так сказать, такая мощный системный подход на воздействие на офицера. Потому что просто только переподготовка, к сожалению, не приводит к положительному результату, потому что рынок труда настолько тяжел для этой категории людей. Вот как распределялось наши усилия по годам. Вот я вам докладывал, 2014 год 1537 человек. Это, конечно, пик. Если сравнить с теми деревьями, то проект как раз соответствовал этапам сокращения армии в зависимости от этих скачков. Значит, до конца года будут общее количество участников 6260. Счастливых людей. Гендерная часть. Вначале была одна женщина в 2003 году, которую офицеры активно выталкивали из своей среды, говорили: иди домой, ты жена, ты должна домом. Посмотрите, и к концу 2014 года, благодаря настойчивой позиции норвежских партнеров, гендерный вопрос практически решен. От 30 до 46% женщин участвуют в проекте. Это тоже достижение, которым мы гордимся. И оно не могло бы быть, если бы не было совместного украинско-норвежского сотрудничества. Потому что гендерная проблема, она для офицерской среды специфическая. Офицер должен учиться и, так сказать, заниматься, воевать, а жена должна содержать дом. Здесь совсем другой подход. Это очень интересная находка. Ну вот по годам. Почему с 2008 года? Проект с 2008 года начал финансироваться Министерством иностранных дел. на первом этапе это было Министерство обороны, там были небольшие объемы. С 2008 года, вот посмотрите, процентное соотношение офицеров, членов семей, 12-й, 13-й год. И в плане, да, 14-й. Куда устраиваются, куда мы трудоустраиваем офицеров? Естественно, поскольку мы работали, Крым — это туризм и малый бизнес. Более 60% это малый бизнес. Но тут другая проблема. Идет реформирование, сокращение чиновников, уменьшение. Туда нет офицера дороги. И потом офицер, пока служит, он не может быть членом какой-либо политической партии. А чиновники по партийному признаку в том числе назначаются. Значит, офицер оказывается вообще практически не партнер для государственных служащих. Коротко результат. Значит, что я хотел бы сказать? Вот этот опыт, который накоплен вот в этом проекте, совместного сотрудничества, я хочу подчеркнуть, это единственный проект, который выполняется именно совместно. Все остальные дают деньги, в лучшем случае контролируют. Это вместе. И вот то, что мы сегодня слышали в выступлении премьер-министра и Украины, и Норвегии, мне кажется, этот опыт был бы перенесен на следующий проект. Это подготовки специалистов для работы в совместных украинско-норвежских предприятиях. Имплементация чиновников в европейское сообщество — это хорошо. Но вот мало совместных предприятий. Плохо бизнес Норвегии идет в Украину, а украинский бизнес плохо идет в Норвегию. Так давайте воспользуемся этим опытом. И на базе этого проекта, за счет потенциала университета Нурланда, университета Шевченко и других университетов, которые сейчас начали, они только начали с нами работать, можно сделать новый проект и действительно оказать принципиальную поддержку Норвежско-Украинской торговой палате по подготовке специалистов с высшим образованием, которые имеют опыт в бизнесе, в работе в новых условиях, в норвежско-украинском бизнесе. Спасибо за внимание. Здесь можно много говорить, я могу оставить этот, слайд. Здесь вообще интересная ситуация. Благодаря этому проекту получилось так, что практически офицеры, которые ранее участвовали в проекте, создали рабочие места для тех, кто выпускается сейчас. То есть они начали создавать новые рабочие места. Это опять было требование норвежской стороны, не менее 20% должны создать собственный бизнес. Вот реально 62% трудоустроены за счет рабочих мест, которые создали предыдущие участники проекта. Это вообще уникальная ситуация. Аналогов в Украине нет. Спасибо теперь точно за внимание.
Владимир, thank you.
Микрофон надо.
Вопрос будет такой странный, но я хотела спросить, а почему Норвегии было интересно адаптировать наших военнослужащих?
Отвечаю. В Норвегии была аналогичная проблема, когда в 2002 году Норвегия сокращала часть вооруженных сил. Это первое. А второй опыт. Норвегия работала в Мурманске с 1998 года по аналогичной программе, вот по той схеме, которую я показал. И когда Украина сказала, давайте сотрудничать, они говорят, да, мы знаем, у нас есть опыт. Все. Это расширение географии. И совершенно неожиданно это сейчас сработало на перспективу. И вот то, о чем мы сегодня говорим.
Где-то ради интеграции такой, да?
Да.
Why should Norway support retraining of military officers in Ukraine? Because as we can see in the news, the military forces in Ukraine, they are very important, and it is expected that Ukraine need all their officers. How will you respond to that?
В настоящее время в зоне антитеррористической операции воюют примерно 50 тысяч офицеров. Если сюда добавить еще сокращаемые Министерство внутренних дел, уже сократили 20 тысяч, этот процесс будет продолжаться, то на самом деле психологически дезинтегрированных и военный контингент, он не уменьшается, к сожалению, а только увеличивается из-за той ситуации, в которой мы сейчас находимся. Люди, которые участвуют в боевых действиях, они психологически требуют психологической адаптации. И они привыкли и уже видят, что с помощью оружия можно улучшить свое благосостояние, то, что происходит сейчас на востоке Украины. И вопрос, как их интегрировать в гражданское общество, эта проблема сейчас становится еще даже острее, чем она стояла ранее. И, к сожалению, государство средств на это не выделяет, хотя проблема обозначена. И все о ней говорят, она очень серьезная, ее надо просто решать. То есть проблема, к сожалению, в ближайшие 5 лет будет только обостряться.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. Also very proud to be the first Norwegian, ethnic Norwegian, to take the podium, although Anatoly is pretty much as Norwegian as anybody else in Norway. This is actually just a continuation of the presentation that first Anatoly started and Vladimir continued, because my presentation is about a recent initiative. It's an initiative taken by the University of Nordland. It's an initiative that is being realized in cooperation with NUPI, the Norwegian Institute of Foreign Affairs, financed by the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Sigre Group, Norwegian consultancy and research company. We are very proud participants. The objective here is to prepare a Norwegian capacity building program in Ukraine directed at civil servants, current civil servants who are working today and who are faced with new challenges and new demands as part of the EU partnership agreement, which was signed by Ukraine in June and ratified later in September. And Norway has, as some of you may know, a similar relationship with the EU, because we are a member of the European Economic Area since 1992 and never has since then chose not to become members of the EU. These agreements, both the Ukraine agreement and the Norwegian agreement with the EU, give access to the EU common market. We take part in the free flows of capital, products and services, and this sets certain requirements to product standards and sort of trade barriers that you can have in place. Norway is continuously adopting to the requirements from the EU, so this is not a process that is over and done with within a limited time period. But most importantly, I think, from the Ukraine perspective, is that the EU agreement and the choice to integrate with the European Union represents a qualitatively new approach to governance within the Ukrainian state. So, as part of this, we have identified some topics that in the EU accession agreement, which we feel that Norway has relevant experience in, and which might be relevant for the coming capacity building project. And these are issues like energy management, energy efficiency. We have management of public finances, as Anatoly was talking about. The need for statistics, small and medium-sized enterprises development, and so on. Also important from a Norwegian perspective is social policies, in particular gender policies, which has found reflection in all the preceding projects as well. And this is, and I think for going forward, which is important when you want within the EU context, European context, is the interaction between NGOs and civil society and government authorities in order to try to find a productive way to work together and division of roles, because in some cases you can have some tension, but actually using civil society and being able to build a true civil society which is based on the efforts of the Ukrainian citizens and not only relies on financial support from the outside is very important in order to build a European-style democracy. Lastly, I'd just like to just point out the last bullet here, which relates to the attractiveness of regions, building regional attractiveness in terms of tourism, investments, etc., because this project is very much we have decided to take both a national and a regional approach. So one thing is for Norwegians to sort of think what can we talk about and what do we know. Much more important, I think, is to find out what are the needs locally, and to listen to what suggestions and what feelings that primarily existing civil servants and members of the civil society have to say about this. So we have done now, in the course of October, 9 focus group interviews in cities like Odessa, Vinnytsia, Lviv, Ternopil, Kherson, Ivano-Frankivsk, Cherniv, and Chernivtsi, as well as in Kyiv. And the main things that we have been interested in while doing these interviews is to find out to what degree do people know what this agreement is actually about? What are their expectations toward how Ukraine should develop? What are the main challenges they see today in how the Ukrainian state is managed and how they do their work within the Oblast administration, within city municipal administration, and what sort of competence needs do they have? In particularly interesting for us is to realize that there are substantial efforts ongoing in relation to continuous capacity building for Ukrainian civil servants. Also, what concerns European integration. But unfortunately, the capacity of the existing system is probably not sufficient in order to handle that enormous demand for knowledge and understanding of EU requirements, which will come now in the near future. Let's see here. We have, I would say, some preliminary findings, which I think might be interesting to share with you for the purpose of discussions after the break. So, first of all, many people ask the very basic questions: what is really the EU? And it's a hard question to answer because people write, master's and PhD theses about this continuously. And what is Europe, and what are European values? I mean, to what degree does there exist a common set of European values that everybody in Europe agrees on? And these are sort of questions that are perceived as quite relevant for the participants of our focus group interviews. And I think these are things that we will have to, in some way, address. Importantly, there's also a need for adaptation in terms of the approach to work. How do we organize, and how do we understand the role of a civil servant in European context? Should we have a civil servant whose job is to do exclusively what his immediate boss says and nothing more? Or do you have, is sort of the transformation that Ukraine is going to go through so substantial that people will have to take on own initiative and try to drive this process also independently? It has something to do with cultural and societal approaches. This is something that we can see also from the accession of, for example, the Baltic states to the European Union, whereas for some cases it was, from the Baltics' perspective, a sort of a confirmation that their national sort of understanding of themselves as national identities was correct. It's also true that the EU is quite critical towards the minorities policies that these states are conducting in terms of rights for language minorities. I think this is something that is also a relevant perspective that we have to take with us into this project, because, as we all know, in Ukraine this is a very, very hot topic, very relevant issue, and the EU supports minority rights, be it language minorities, ethnic minorities, sexual minorities, and so on. And I think this is, in people's consciousness, this is things that will take time, but I think it's also important that people are aware of these mental differences between Europe and what many people see in Ukraine today. additionally, of course, what they say is that, okay, so one thing is how to do work, but when we train civil servants, they are trained in how to do their job. And their job is, they presented words like дело производства, приказ, постановление. But if they're supposed to do something and improve the energy efficiency of the city, they also need to know something about energy efficiency. If they're supposed to produce statistics and use statistics in a relevant way, they also need to know something about statistics. How do you make them? How do you use them? So equally important is sector competence, and being able to sort of identify the relevant sectors is something that we'll be working on. Interaction with EU institutions was also a topic that rose interest. Northern Norway, for example, has its own office in Brussels, which they use to lobby and to sort of monitor the situation and lobby things that are of interest to them. Also, other Norwegian regions have that, so there's also a regional perspective into this, that work with the EU is not just something that goes on at the level of the Cabinet of Ministers or at the President's level. This is something that actually the different oblasts can get involved in if they want. But of course, as everyone understands, is that the accession agreement also opens up the possibility to participate in EU projects. And in a situation where you have very limited funding, participating in EU projects is sort of the way to go forward in order to get to know the EU better. But how do you get the EU funding? This is a big question. Norway is not very good at it. But if you can get these resources, they can be quite substantial, and this is sort of one thing that people are aware of and would like to try to know, because working with European partners on projects is one way to integrate together. We have, this is a fast-moving project because it is a pre-project where we are trying to define the content and mode of operation for what we hope will be a major initiative launched sometimes next year. So now in October, we have been doing data collection, as I was mentioning. Now in November, we are in an intensive phase of data analysis. And in December, we hope that we'll be able to present the program and get constructive and critical feedback from the participants, and also use these participants' network in order to take the suggestions that have been developed back and improve it. And then, God willing, we will have a launch sometime in January. Thank you for your attention. I decided to try to speed it up so that we could have time for any questions. Please.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you. Very interesting. Questions, comments, remarks, suggestions?
Thank you very much for your presentation, Daniel. I have a question. Based on the interviews with focus groups in different cities, what kind of challenges do you already see? What are the gaps in the competences, and what should Ukrainian public servants do in order to kind of be competent to come into the European Union?
This is a very, if we could answer that, then I think we would know, then half the project would be done already. I think the most important thing that civil servants, in my mind at least, but I'm not a civil servant, so I come from the outside, but is to try to understand your role also beyond your little office room. That you're to understand the role that you have in relation to a wide, larger number of stakeholders than just your boss or, for example, the governor. I can bring an example from one of the cities that we visited. We asked, what does your region do to attract investments and promote development? The answer we received from a representative of the Economics Development Department, let's put it that way, said that the governor has some new thoughts on this and we are going to undergo reorganization. I think this is a quite, from someone who is 100% dependent on the hierarchy and the line of command, this is a natural response. But, you know, if you just cut through this hierarchy and how things are organized, if you work in the economics development department, your job is to develop the economy, and so you should be focused on the task and the goals of your organization. And sometimes you have to define those goals yourself in order to do a good job. I hope I was able to answer at least in part. Thank you.
One more question, Bor.
Yes, it's Bo Hekland from the Norwegian Center for International Cooperation and Education. I mean, this is rather exciting. It's a big agenda. How big, what is your aim here afterwards? How big do you want this to become? Who is going to do the work? Are you going to build on a model as what we've seen with social adaptation? What is to be done from Norway, Ukraine? Is this executive short-term programs? I suppose you have some thoughts on that.
You are absolutely correct that we will build as much as possible on the model that has been used for social adaptation. This is a model that has proven very successful. In terms of volume, this is a question which is directly related to the amount of funding, but I think the ambition level should be approximately the same as for the social adaptation program, because that is the amount that the existing network has proven capable of handling. The other question is, of course, shall you try to give the same program to everybody, or do you want to have a selection process where you have a light program that everybody gets, and then that you sort of pick the most interested and the most active and the most competent to give them an in-depth understanding so that you have a teach the teachers approach. These are things that we are considering now at the moment.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and all best wishes and good luck to you and your colleagues, because this is very, very important. You need energy, for sure, and you have also a tight schedule, so you need a calendar. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ďakujem za uvagu.
So, well, my name is Arnfinn Nordbø, and I'm a project manager full-time in the Norwegian-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce. Yes. I'm running a project called Business Development and Good Corporate Governance in Ukraine. Within this project, we do many things, such as developing this logo and this NUBF, and many different things actually. But and preparing this agricultural report. University of Norway have produced this one for us through the project, the Guide to Doing Business in Ukraine, very good one, and the Guide to Doing Business in Norway, not less good. We have a matchmaking program where we try to connect Norwegian and Ukrainian companies. And we have a Young Entrepreneurs program, which I will focus on here today. You've probably seen this brochure, I hope. And this poster, of course. Who wants it? You'll have it. So, how does this work? Let's try that one. Believe that Ukraine has a good future, but it must fight for its freedom. It must root out corruption from the society, including in politics, business, and in the courts. In NUCC, we do our best to support Ukraine in its fight, in this fight for democracy, dignity, freedom, and prosperity. We want to see a prosperous Ukraine. Thank you. So, one of the ways we try to contribute to this positive development in Ukraine is through our educational program, Young Entrepreneurs, Norwegian and Ukrainian Business Development. We believe a strengthened relation and friendship between our countries is positive for both parts. Closer cooperation in the business sphere and in the educational sphere and among young people is crucial. And I will now go through the basics of our program. The program funder is, again, as always, the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Program owner is NUCC. We applied, MFA approved. So we have two very professional and important partners who are the main responsible for the content and learning. That's Kyiv School of Economics and it's the University of Norland in Bodø. Generally, the program will focus on good corporate governance, anti-corruption, business ethics, transparency, and further have a focus on developing Norwegian-Ukrainian business, increasing trade, to look for potential areas of increased cooperation. Also very important is innovation, entrepreneurship, and business planning. Our goal is that the YE, the Young Entrepreneurs Program, shall contribute to a positive economic and democratic development in Ukraine. A further goal is that through our program we will contribute to a more common Norwegian-Ukrainian business culture and more shared values. An obstacle for Norwegian companies that often stop them from doing business in Ukraine and invest here is the huge problem of corruption in the society. And both for the Norwegian and Ukrainian participants, it's good to learn more about why this is a huge stopper for a positive development in a country and in a society when doing business. The importance of transparency, anti-corruption, a functioning legal system and good corporate governance will be underlined throughout the whole program. We hope the Young Entrepreneurs Program will contribute to increased cooperation and friendship between Ukraine and Norway, and hope for positive ripple effects, such as increased trade. Participants will be learning through theory and practical cases why corruption must be greatly reduced in Ukraine. Another positive outcome of our program is that we are building up a pool of young talents who have interest in and knowledge about Norwegian-Ukrainian business potential, culture, etc. Hopefully, Norwegian and Ukrainian companies wanting to do business with or already doing business with each other can find potential employees among our participants. By solving practical business cases for specific companies, the hope is that this directly and indirectly will stimulate development of more business. The business cases will be presented for specific companies and specific sectors. The promotional material is ready, as you have seen already. You can read more in our brochure about, for example, learning outcomes, and even more on our webpage. The student program in 2015 will be conducted in April and May. And we will be in Bodø from, this is Bodø, very beautiful nature there, you should go there. From the 12th to the 16th of April. And then we will go to Oslo from the 16th, 17th of April to the 20th. And we'll be in Kyiv from the 10th to the 18th of May. And there will be a day trip to Kyiv, the 14th or 15th of May. It's a 1.5 to 2 hours drive north of Kyiv. And both Kyiv and Kyiv have 1,000 years old ties to Norway and Norwegian Vikings. Dmitry Shimkiv already talked about that today. Princes, princesses, kings, etc. So we will also learn a little bit about this, the Norwegian-Ukrainian historical ties. Kyiv may also be an interesting city for doing business in this region because it's very close to Kyiv, but the cost level is lower. We will also go to the very beautiful city of Lviv in the western Ukraine, close to the Polish border. It's a very interesting city, charming and romantic, very European-minded, and with a good geographical location suited for export to Europe. So we will both learn about the business and tourist potential also in this city and region. There will be around 10 Norwegian-Ukrainian participants in 2015 and 20 in 2016. It's open both for students and young talents and preferably under 35 years old. Also possible for employees in Norwegian-Ukrainian companies. It's the 3 weeks free course specialization on Norwegian and Ukrainian business conditions, challenges, opportunities, innovation, solving practical business cases, etc. For more information, take a look in the brochures, ask me, ask KSE, ask University of Norway, visit our webpage. And for important and specific information about how to apply, please go to our webpage. Finally, everyone interested in Ukraine and or Norway, and I guess you are, you should follow NUCC on Facebook and on Twitter. We are updating either the Facebook or the Twitter or our webpage almost every day. So use us to stay tuned. We have almost around 2,000 followers on Facebook now, actually. So, on behalf of NUCC, our sponsor and our partners, I would like to say thank you for your kind attention.
I'm always concerned with the future Norwegian-Ukrainian relations, and I would like to ask you an open question. Of course, maybe you don't have any plans yet, but what will be after 2015, 2016? You have already a program for these 2 years, but are you looking ahead? Are you going to develop something new, or you want to continue with what we have already now, and how do you see this?
Well, first of all, we have to discuss this among our partners, and it's very important what the University of Norway and the Kyiv School of Economics, what they are thinking. But from our perspective, of course, we want to continue this and develop it and to become an even better and bigger program. So yes, we want to continue after 2016, but it doesn't depend only on us. We need, of course, funding and sponsors and etc. But NUCC is also quite dependent on such projects, since we are a non-governmental, non-profit organization. We need these kinds of projects to do everything we are doing. So we cross our fingers that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will still think of Ukraine as important in 2016 and further on.
Thank you for the nice presentation. My name is June. I'm from the University of Nordland. So I am wondering about how this program, these young entrepreneurs, in the long run, can promote more trade and business relations between Norway and Russia. Ukraine. You're in Ukraine.
Well, as I said, we will have specific business cases for specific companies wanting to do business with Ukraine or interested in, curious about it, and we will solve the questions. We will prepare a business plan. The participants will prepare business plans. We will present them for the companies, for the relevant sectors, and we hope that this will directly stimulate trade. And then we hope there will be ripple effects through more friendship, more cooperation, more focus on it, and through these guides and this knowledge that we are building up, we hope and we do believe that through this project this will lead to increased trade, also because they will learn more about the potential. In Norway, many people actually don't know much about Ukraine and the great country. 45 millions living here. It's a big market, low cost, high level of quality of education, etc., etc. Agriculture, energy, ICT, maybe even tourism, shipbuilding, you name it. There are a seafood export from Norway. There are a lot of potential here, and we are seeing already now an increased interest from Norwegian companies. The last few months, myself, I have seen a big difference in the attitude and interest.
Actually, I will not speak about research cooperation. Another speaker, Erna, was expected to make this presentation. I can only speak about possibilities for cooperation in education, higher education. My short presentation will fall into 3 parts. I will briefly outline the higher education sector in Ukraine. Then I will also briefly outline the capacity built through Tempus program. Tempus Erasmus Plus program is relatively new. It has substituted the Tempus program that probably all of you know, as it has been running for more than 20 years. And in the third part of my presentation, I will try to outline what can be done, what are actually the potential for Ukrainian individual cooperation from the point of view of Erasmus Plus Office, and how we can all participate in this program. Ukrainian higher educational sector, I would like to draw your attention that in fact we have a lot of universities, much more than we should have, but this is also bad and good. Some of them are high quality, some are not very high quality. With the new law on higher education, the situation will change, but nevertheless, we have more than 2,000 solid high quality higher educational establishments in Ukraine that are open for cooperation. The higher education sector is high on the agenda. There is constantly, whatever the government is in power, there are constant reforms to modernize it. And one of the major achievements of this year, 2014, is the adoption of the new law on higher education. And this is rather progressive law. The task force that has been working on it has not achieved everything that they wanted to achieve, but still it is a great breakthrough compared to what we have previously, before the law. And the interest to, not the interest, but the impetus, the stimulus to reform our higher education and education in general continues. There is currently a working group on developing the strategy for education in general underway, so we do hope that the situation in higher education will only improve. As for the major achievements of this law, I would like to draw the attention to the following. First of all, the law foresees the Bologna facilitation of Bologna process in Ukraine. The law foresees full compatibility with European higher education area. Then I would like to stress that this law foresees expansion of university autonomy and academic freedoms, which opens more ways for international cooperation. Then it is important that competence-based approach to the development of curricula should be used, and this means a lot of cooperation with businesses, with employers, and also the law opens more opportunities for international mobility, not only students from Ukraine who are always willing to go to study abroad, but also the situation will be more easier for foreign students and foreign professors to come to Ukraine and teach on a short-term basis or study within credit mobility or degree mobility programs. Now, this is a short slide, a short information as to how the current Ministry of Education and Science see the priorities. And again, if you look at the slide, you will see that internationalization, foreign languages, learning from European best practices is on the agenda. And we hope that this will continue in the new government that we hope to have shortly. Now, some statistics as to the capacity built by Ukrainian universities, Ukrainian higher educational sector, due to participation in international cooperation programs, in European cooperation programs. So again, what we see under Tempus 4, and this was running from 2007 to 2013, Ukraine has implemented 94 projects, which is quite a lot. Also, I would like to underline that in total, 135 universities are currently participating or have participated in the Tempus programs, and 50 new higher education institutions joined this program under Tempus 4. So this is the number of partners. Ukraine has Ukrainian universities participate with 27 EU member states, and these are the partners of these are our partners in Tempus, not from the EU, and here we have 14 different countries. Another slide, how the projects, Tempus projects, are dispersed all over Ukraine, and practically every region, every area, west, east, north, south, center, are involved in the Tempus program, which in our understanding is also very good. Out of 135 universities that are active in Tempus, some are very active in Tempus, and here are those that are most actively involved. Taras Shevchenko National University, that is very active in cooperation with Norway, currently implements 11 Tempus projects, but they are not the winners in the Tempus program, because we have universities like National Kyiv Polytechnic University or Kharkiv Aviation Institute, HAI. They have even more projects. But of course, Kyiv universities are very, very active. Yet it is not only Kyiv, but also Lviv, Donetsk, Ivano-Frankivsk, Sumy, Odessa. So thanks to the Tempus program, quite a significant expertise has been built. And while I was preparing for this presentation, I looked through the projects that we have currently, and I would say that many of the projects deal with the areas that have been identified as priority areas by this conference, and this is environment, energy, ICT, innovations, and trade facilitation. I will not read the names of the projects now, but for those who are interested, you may look at the presentation or on the website of Erasmus Plus Office. So you see we have quite a number of projects implemented or being implemented in environmental area, a lot of projects in engineering and technologies, quite many of them, special group of projects in ICT sector, but very often these areas intervene. For instance, ICT projects, they are also projects on innovations, many projects in innovations and university business cooperation. Here I have listed some of the benefits or benefits that our Tempus program has helped Ukraine, and some of the achievements that higher education of Ukraine can now boast. So here we see modernization of curriculum, development of modern programs, establishment of different units that promote and facilitate innovations. They may have different names like knowledge transfer units or innovation labs or innovation centers. Also important are platforms. They again can be virtual platforms or networks of teachers, trainers, experts that have already built accumulated capacity for cooperation. Also, we can speak about models or schemes for effective business industry cooperation, entrepreneurship networks. Quite a number of training centers or laboratories have been established, and these also include virtual laboratories where experts or students can cooperate or communicate with the teachers via internet or physical. And among other achievements, I would like to mention also development of recommendations for the government. Our Tempus projects have been quite successful in this as well. In my vision, in our vision, Ukraine really is an attractive partner for international cooperation projects. Let me sum up why. First of all, many higher educational establishments. In each region, we have a technical university or technological university, agrarian university, trade and economics university, and also classical universities that unite different areas together. Another benefit is constantly growing interest in international cooperations. Ukrainian universities are always eager to cooperate and looking for partners. International cooperation expertise I have mentioned already. Higher education reform is high on the agenda, and the new government, as I said, I hope will continue this approach. Also, STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is rather strong in Ukraine. These good academic schools have been retained, though of course we cannot boast of a very, very high level of our education currently, but still we believe that this can be restored. Ukraine and Norway has areas of mutual interest, ICT, engineering, oil and gas, energy, environment, fishing, water resources, agriculture, and so on. So I believe that we really have prospects for future cooperation. First of all, what is important to know that all projects are implemented in a partnership. There should be minimum 3 universities from program countries. Norway is a program country. Minimum 3 universities for Ukraine if it is a project for Ukraine only. Or if you go for a broader consortium, for broader partnership, for the so-called cross-regional project, then you should have minimum 2 universities from each partner country, Ukraine, Moldova, Israel, and so on. It is important to respect national and regional priorities, and the priorities are identified on the annual basis. Priorities for this year have been identified, and they're also presented on this slide. What makes a good project proposal is relevance, importance. You should prove that this project is important for and relevant for current situation. Innovative character is also a must. Duplications are not allowed, and we always, or not always, but sometimes have discussions what is synergy and what is duplication in a new project on education. Quality of partnerships is important, and we always recommend to include all partners with expertise, but also new partners who have not yet participated in programs like Tempus Erasmus IV. And very important for each project is impact and sustainability. You should prove in your application that this project will have long-term sustainability. For a partner search, we have developed the web page, and you can visit it and submit your proposal. And here are our contacts. We are always open. We can be reached by phone, by email, or on the website. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation, because for us it is very practical knowledge, and of course we will try to create very relevant projects according to your tips for us. And I have a very practical question about the deadlines.
For capacity building projects, it is February 26.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Who doesn't understand English here? So I can do it in English. Okay, good. I'm going to make some informal remarks. I don't have a presentation, and the remarks are more for the purpose of stimulating some discussion. And they're going to be very frank, maybe controversial, and maybe judged by some to be somewhat extreme. But we can discuss all of that as we go along. But at least we'll have an exciting discussion. Yeah. Okay. I'd like to talk to you about my observations and experiences in higher education in Ukraine, in two fields, in economics and in business or management education. As far as economics is concerned, I have to tell you I'm an economist. I'm originally a macroeconomist, econometrician from New York University, PhD, a long time ago, as you may have guessed. But that has always been my first love. And for 22 years in the United States, I was a professor and enjoyed it very much. But I then also taught management and business economics and related subjects, and decided, well, enough of preaching, let's start practicing, and picked a very hospitable environment to do business in Ukraine, 1992. Very difficult environment, as you may remember, for those of you who were here at the time. Hyperinflation, super devaluation, economic collapse, GDP drops by 70%. The currency devalues by a factor of, I'm trying to remember how many zeros after one, 1,000%, 10,000%, well, from about 2 to 240,000, something like that. And so it was quite difficult to set a business. And then I managed Kraft Foods, among other things, for 16 years. Kraft Foods, from a small chocolate factory in Trostinets to an almost $1 billion business in 12 countries and 6 different food categories. And then I returned to my love, which is economics and education, and I'm now president of the Kyiv School of Economics in Ukraine. So on the basis of all of this, I have some observations. Number one, about higher education in Ukraine. Higher education in Ukraine is a very big disappointment. This is a very highly developed country, very smart people. Its economy was once ranked as number 13 in the world back in 1989. Now it's below 40, I think, and dropping. Educational system was very strong, it seemed, at least. And then something happened. And we don't know what happened for sure. I have some hypotheses, but today Ukrainian universities don't appear in any world rankings. I looked. In some fields, they could appear towards the end of the rating, and that's maybe 1 or 2 universities. There's a rating of 12,000 universities. I forget the name of it right now. And Ukrainian universities start at around the 1,100 position and go all the way down to 11,000 something. Why? The answers are simple, I think. First of all, they are rooted in Ukrainian history. In the Soviet period, everything was controlled through Moscow. Language learning in Ukrainian was not encouraged. Most faculty members in Ukraine at that time did not know other languages other than Russian and maybe some Ukrainian, and maybe a little bit of English or German here and there, mostly in the sciences, mostly, as we know, for purposes of transfer of knowledge into the military-industrial complex. It was that simple. When Ukraine had its choice in 1992 to open its gates to the world in education, it did not do that. It set up barriers. The key barrier was the PhD degree is not recognized in Ukraine. Just think, imagine a picture, a Marshall Plan for Ukraine in science, we gather all of the Nobel Prize winners of the world, and we bring them to Ukraine so they can teach in Ukrainian universities. Guess what? They can't teach. It's illegal. Each of them, each of their degrees has to be nostrified. That means it has to be converted into, or recognized in Ukraine. Can you imagine what commissions would be gathered to check the knowledge of Nobel Prize laureates? And that was it. Lack of languages and an insular barrier, no PhDs, only Ukrainian recognized degrees, created a very weird system where, as a result of that, there are no universities in world rankings. If you look at science publications, and in this we include economics and business, you rarely will find any articles that are cited or listed or referenced. Exchanges are minimal. Dual degree programs, as far as I know, except for one school, do not exist. In other words, if you gain a Ukrainian degree, you simultaneously gain a degree in a recognized Western university. All the normal things you find in the EU, the rest of Europe, North America, are absent. Asia are absent here. So that's a sad story, but there's a happy side to it, of course, and the happy side is there's a lot of great work that can be done. There are wonderful things that we can do. The opportunities are boundless. You do one small, slight thing, and the rewards and the recognition and the dividends are fantastic. So that's what's so good about it, if we want to look at it that way. Let me just say a word about the Kyiv School of Economics, because it may show the way. The Kyiv School of Economics is a private graduate school, has no university affiliation in Ukraine, and is not licensed or accredited in Ukraine. So it's a doghouse school, yeah, one would think. Yet, let's look at the results. Out of approximately 200 students who applied for doctoral programs or doctoral study outside of Ukraine, 104 received their doctorates, and 40 are studying for their doctorates. Of those 104 who received their doctorates, 10 have come back to Ukraine to teach at the Kyiv School of Economics. And so they perpetuated this virtual cycle of producing PhD grade students who went out and got their PhDs. But these professors were not recognized in Ukraine. If you look at the top 15 economists outside of Ukraine, ranked by Forbes, 13 out of the 15 are graduates or professors, former professors at the Kyiv School of Economics. 2 belong to the rest of the academic world of Ukraine. 2. If you look at articles that are evaluated in REPEC, by far the Kyiv School of Economics is a leader, by far. If you look at the top 200 young economists in the world, only one is from Ukraine. He's from the Kyiv School of Economics, Yuri Hordnichenko, and he's number 1 out of the 200. Where are the rest? This is the future of economic science. These are future economists who will one day become Nobel Prize winners, etc. Kyiv School of Economics has an international advisory board, which includes a Nobel Prize winner. What other advisory board of a Ukrainian university has a Nobel Prize winner on the board? It's not that these are badges to flaunt. This is real, effective input into the quality of education and scholarship at a school. Others should be doing the same thing. So, in a sense, the Kyiv School of Economics points a direction. And we would like to work with other Ukrainian universities to see if we can multiply these results. I was recently at a conference at a very well-known university in Kyiv, a bilateral conference. this university and Ukrainian participants and a North American country I won't mention. We had an embarrassment. Papers that were being presented in Ukrainian had to be translated into English as part of the discussion. None of the graduate students who was there who knew English could translate effectively. So the problem seems to continue into the next generation. What do we need to do? We need to have massive exchange programs instituted as quickly as possible. We need to have language education so that people stop being unable to understand and speak, but can communicate with others. Those, by the way, who know English well in Ukraine, students, graduate students, usually opt to study outside of Ukraine. Obviously. Now, if we can move on to business education, I can tell you from many discussions, from my own experience and many of my discussions with my colleagues, when you look at the size of the economy, clearly there's a disproportion between the number of competent MBAs and the need for MBAs benchmarked by any European or North American country. So MBA programs need to develop quickly, develop in a way which allows exchange programs, which it means exchange of students, exchange of faculties, exchange of research, exchange of consulting, and dual degrees, ultimately. Ukraine now faces a great challenge. It has the opportunity of developing its business in Europe. The roadblocks are gone, the barriers are gone, the encouragements are in place. Will Ukraine be able to meet the challenge? The desire is there, but will Ukraine be able to meet the challenge? I don't know. I sit in a number of boards of companies that aspire to do business in Europe, have started to do business in Europe. They don't have the cadres. They don't have the managers who can engage and interact with their counterparts in Western business. If the language is there, the education is not there. They can speak about what to order in a restaurant, or about their lives, or about what is happening in Ukraine. They have difficulty in sustained discussion and negotiation, which involves terminology, because the education is simply in Ukrainian, and well, if you happen to have a textbook, or if you read in parallel in an English language textbook, you acquire some of the skill. But for most part, you have a real problem. So I think that what Norway is doing in Ukraine is extremely brave, extremely needed, and I hope Ukrainians grab it with both hands and exhaust your possibility of exchange and help, because it's desperately needed. Human capital investment is the most important investment into the future. And just as the Ukrainian economy needs a lot of FDI into its physical production facilities, it also needs a lot of FDI into its human capital. Well, I think anything else would be redundant or excessive detail, and I'm sure we have a lot of exciting things to talk about. So I thank you very much for this opportunity and look forward to our discussions and debates. Thanks.
Other question, comments? Do you all agree?
I'm waiting for somebody to say no.
Let me just try. Thank you very much for your interesting description, but at the same time, a very black description. Do you see, or do you know Ukraine so well that you could see any kind of sectors in the society where it is not as black as you have painted it? Are there any kind we have heard about IT, we have heard about energy and so on. Are there any sectors where you could see that both education and also business are developing in another way than the common picture that you have given us?
Yeah, clearly. From the and I think what I've said is not negative. It just points out the opportunity. But I think in business, the Ukraine has been the best kept secret from the world in terms of business opportunities. I can tell from the experience I've had with Kraft Foods. Where can you come into a country and start off with a $2 million investment? You buy a chocolate factory whose revenue is $4 million a year and loss-making, and transform that in a matter of 15, 16 years into a huge business that's close to $1 billion in value and spreads out into 12 countries. And many, many other examples like that. In the food industry, I know that my counterparts of Nestle, which is very successful in Ukraine, in other branches, everybody who does business in Ukraine says the people are fantastic. Their skills are, basic skills are great, so you can build on that and provide for the proper training and so on. And you can achieve great successes. The only problem has always been corruption and not the most stably growing GDP. That's you know, 4 depressions in how many years? In 24 years, yeah. Isn't that happy news? But despite that, you can achieve margins that exceed those of businesses in the West. You can have market advances in terms of market share and so on that would be impossible to think of in the EU if you employ the right strategies. And you can have high profit margins and be able to pay your board of management people at the 6-figure in dollars range. So, yeah, but how to start that kind of a business today? It's much easier because there are a few business schools that produce good graduates. But when I had to start this in 1995, I took students out of the Kyiv Academy, University, and we sat around the table and had our own board of management MBA program. Later, we sent 6 students to IMI and 6 students to Kyiv to gain their MBAs. So the opportunities are fantastic. If I had to do it over again, I would. And I think any business coming into Ukraine has a prospect of doing very, very, very well. So it shows you that there's the ability is there, the talent is there. But the system that's supposed to develop that is hopelessly outdated and of minimal relevance. So exchange programs, educational programs, which can impart knowledge and develop this talent are a very important part of success. And any company that comes into Ukraine needs to keep that in mind, that they need to bring initially some qualified managers. They will quickly upgrade the level of local managers, and they need to invest into higher education by paying tuition for their employees to gain their MBAs in local schools, and in that way provide them with revenue and resources for further development. One more thing, in terms of the educational system, which is a problem with all of civil service, it's all state run, basically, with a few exceptions. And university professors are very underpaid, disastrously underpaid. Something has to be done, and one proposal that I would advocate would be to allow universities to convert their autonomy into independence and break away from the state system and be able to charge normal tuition and be able to pay normal salaries for professors and engage freely in educational exchanges without state restrictions and barriers. Sorry.
I will be done very fast. I see that I have less than 5 minutes, but I think I will manage. And as Professor Vladimir Zaslavsky managed, they usually call me a product of cooperation between the University of Nordland and the Kyiv National University. And I hope I am a good product. Anyway, today I'm not going to talk about me. I'm going to talk about the project which was realized together with the Norwegian-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce, which was about Guide to Doing Business in Norway and Guide to Doing Business in Ukraine. We were involved in the research project for almost half a year, and we produced 2 books, and maybe you could have a look at them here. This is simply talking handbook for those who are interested in doing business in Ukraine and in doing business in Norway. And it's written in a very simple language in order to understand what kind of potential Ukraine and Norway has, and what kind of spheres of cooperation where both sides can contribute and achieve great results. Next slide, please. Or can I get... Oh, it's here. Yeah. As I have mentioned already, the project was requested by the Norwegian-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and prepared by the University of Nordland. These are 2 guides, which you may find also on the reception, on the registration. If you didn't get them already, please go and take a copy if you're interested. I would like to stop a little bit on the structure of the guides. I will be very short. The guide to doing business in Ukraine consists of 3 parts. Part 1 gives an introduction to Norway, what are the key potential spheres where Ukraine can contribute in terms of economy. And there are also chapters devoted to the culture and cultural differences between Norwegians and Ukrainians and what kind of business opportunities are there. Part 2 is about how to establish a business in Norway, how to pay taxes, and practical advices not to bribe people and some other solutions to your problems in addition to those what Ukrainians know, for example, because there are many things that work here but will never work in Norway, and we stress about it. And I'm very grateful for our interviewees and respondents, since we conducted a survey before we started the guide, sending questionnaires to the people who do business in Norway. Many of them are foreign companies as well as Ukrainian companies, and we got a lot of practical advices on how to do business in Norway. So if you're really interested, you can find some advices in the book. And also there are some more advices on how to close your business and many other things. And also practical cases are included. These are cases about experiences of Ukrainian entrepreneurs in Norway, and they were telling the story, how they started and what they have done wrong, what could be done differently. So they share their personal experiences, and I think this is very valuable for people who come to the country for the first time, and then knowing other cases will be very, very useful. And now a little bit about the structure of the Guide to Doing Business in Ukraine. It was more challenging to write a Guide to Doing Business in Ukraine, especially in these times. Sometimes we had to postpone our project because we really didn't know what to write in order to attract the investor. Anyway, as Arnfinn Nordbø mentioned already, and the Norwegian-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce, they still see a great potential and many spheres where Norway can contribute in Ukraine. So therefore, we had a separated chapter devoted to the reasons for doing business in Ukraine. Among those are the size of the country and
a lot of opportunities in IT, so outsourcing and software development, because interviewing people from IT companies like Itera and Evry, who have their subsidiaries in Ukraine, they are very much satisfied with the results of their business in Ukraine. And they say that to conduct IT business in Ukraine costs 70% cheaper than to do that in Norway. So they clearly see the potential, especially in this sphere, when you can secure how people develop the product, and then the Norwegian side sells this, and they are very satisfied with the IT developers who work and the education level. So there are some really big potential business spheres. And also, thanks to our interviewees, we collected a lot of practical advices on how to, for example, cope with bureaucracy in Ukraine, or, for example, corruption, and how to get the best from the location of Ukraine between East and West. So if you are interested, please have a look at, at this guide. Also, we are very grateful for our co-author, let's say, who wrote a small chapter on human rights and business, and he's constantly updating his research on human rights in Ukraine and how it impacts the business. Also, there are some other chapters. One of those is Organization of Business Activity in Ukraine, which was written by the company, which is a member of Norwegian-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce, Danevich and Marchenko law firm, and also practical cases that show that it's always smart to have a partner, reliable partner in Ukraine, or someone who can take care of your problems in business. For example, Norwegian-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce, who have that has connections in the Ukrainian government and Norwegian government and embassies to solve some of the problems, especially in the fishing industry. And there are some fun parts in the guide, top 10 interesting facts about Ukraine and details about Ukrainian cuisine. Yeah, probably I don't have time to stop on this, so I will skip quickly. And there are some also interesting observations. When we were preparing the guide, we have noticed a lot of differences, especially in the business culture between Norway and Ukraine. And we have divided them into some subcategories, like in society and business. And for example, we see a lot of differences since we start educating children at school, and then it leads to the other, let's say, differences in business culture between Norway and Ukraine. And it's very smart to know that before you start any joint venture or you start doing business in Ukraine or in Norway. For example, in Norway, it's always collegial decision making, everyone is involved, but in Ukraine, it's sometimes the boss knows better. So there are some approaches to business and some business culture elements that might be improved in Ukraine in order to have a really good partnership with other countries, especially Norway, since Norway is very willing to contribute. Yeah. So as one of the as the chairman of Norwegian Chamber of Commerce suggested that our handbooks is the simplest handbooks in the challenging process of doing business in Ukraine and Norway, because we cannot say that it's very easy to do business in Norway. There are also a lot of challenges, because in Norway there are other rules that Ukrainians, for example, cannot understand, and it's also a very high-cost country. So people who start their business, they have to be aware about it. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you. We have now heard about the opportunities for increased cooperation between Ukraine and Norway within business and education. And let's go to 2017. what do you hope will be the most important point of progress which has been achieved during 2015 and 2016? I think I start with Mr. Anatoly Borbistov.
Thank you, Bor. This is a kind of speech. We should start. I have a dream. Martin Luther King.
Yes, what's your dream?
Yeah, what's my dream? I have three points, and I think the first one is that I really hope that we have education programs and competency programs which really address the needs of Ukraine and needs of Norwegian-Ukrainian cooperation. I think we have some very interesting examples from presentations today, and I hope that really we could say in 3 years that what we did was very important because it had some impact. So I really hope that this will be the one point. The second is that when we think about making a business education, so of course we should educate people for some areas, and I really hope that business contacts and trade between Norway and Ukraine will increase dramatically, so that we have some candidates which these businesses will consume. We have a very good example in this business conference. Øyvind Satran, he is the manager of Øgersund Fisk, Norwegian company, which opened the seafood shop here in Kyiv. But he's not educated from Norwegian-Ukrainian programs. He is actually educated from Norwegian-Russian program, joint degree program with MGIMO University in energy management. But probably he learned something which allowed this business to operate between Norway, well-developed country, and country which in developing. And this knowledge has, I hope, helped him to do the business. So if we have more businesses, I hope we will have more educational programs and the opposite. And the final point I think I would like to make that I think in Norway and Ukraine, in some areas, we are equally positioned. And one is European Union research funds. I think maybe not, of course, not all the universities in Norway are like my university, but my university is not so well positioned when it comes to European Union funds. And I think if we move jointly, and we work strategically, so we can probably position ourselves towards Horizon 2020. And I think I learned a lot of today about Erasmus+, which I think will be a very interesting program to try to apply, because it will give, I think, joint benefits to both countries, to both.
Thank you, Anatoly. We go to Mr. George. What's your main hope?
Well, I'm a big optimist about Ukraine. I've always been. I wouldn't have come here otherwise to do a number of things. I came in 1989 to help set up the International Management Institute in Kyiv. I came in 92 to start working full-time in business. And based on all the experience I had in North America and the experience that I've had here, I can say that this is a far more exciting and far better place to do business or education than in North America, simply because of the opportunities that present themselves and the talent of the people. So I believe that Ukrainians, with the help of Norwegians and others, will overcome the barriers of the past, and that I think that by the year 2017, we'll have a good 12 or more meaningful exchange programs where you exchange faculty and you have joint degrees and so on. And I think that the business opportunities here are fantastic. I think this is the right time to get involved in business, because as businessmen, we always know that you should go in when the costs are low and the acquisition price is low, and there's only upside opportunity. I don't think there's any downside. I don't think the world will let the downside happen. So it's only upside, and I encourage everybody who's outside of Ukraine to come into Ukraine. And my final, it's not so much a prediction as a wish, is that that Dr. Yermolenko will teach at the Graduate School of Business of Kyiv, the Kyiv School of Economics.
Fine.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next
job
person
offer.
is Dimitro Yakovenko, director from the University of Agder in Norway.
Yes, thank you very much, Board. Being originally from this city, from Kyiv, and being originally from Ukraine, the first thing that I'm dreaming of is the peace and stability in our country in 2.5, 3 years. I hope that we can overcome the challenges that we're experiencing right now and all the changes that we are living through, and be the stable country that will be more and more attractive for foreign students. Being a head of international office at the Norwegian University, I've seen the troubles among the Norwegian students in understanding why do we have to go to Ukraine. And the same we heard today during the presentations, that it's difficult to explain to the Norwegians, to the Norwegian students, that there are really opportunities here and there's nothing, the country isn't stable, but there are places where they should go. I've never doubted the level of higher education in Ukraine. And I think that we have to use the competitive advantages that our country has in order to combine those with the competitive advantages that Norwegians and Norwegian universities have. And as our university is strong in engineering sciences, we have all the opportunities to find the partners in engineering science in Ukraine. If Bodø Graduate School of Business is strong and in developing the business programs, then there are many strong universities in Ukraine that are very strong in this area as well. So my dream for 2017 is stability in the country and more Norwegians understanding that this is a country of opportunities and more Norwegian students studying here. At the same time, it is not possible not to mention the Erasmus Plus program that is finally, the Erasmus is opening for the countries outside the European Union. So we don't have to cooperate with European Union countries anymore in order to get an opening in the Russian and Ukraine. Now Norway is a fully competitive partner in the Erasmus Plus, and we have an opportunity to cooperate either directly in terms of student exchange and staff exchange, or indirectly via the third countries in terms of capacity development. And I'm sure that the 50 or 55% increase in the Erasmus Plus budget since the previous Erasmus LLP will also give an opportunity for Norwegian-Ukrainian cooperation as well. So I hope that we have to take these chances in Erasmus Plus.
Fine, thank you. Mr. Alexander Savchenko, what do you hope for the next 2 years?
Thanks. Firstly, I would like to start with success story. Our business school is a real success story in Ukraine. This school was set up by Mr. Soros and Ukrainian government 20 years ago, but unfortunately 15 years ago they stopped support this school, and I started support and became the owner of this school. And what is interesting, this is institution within Ukrainian educational system. We are ranked by Ministry of Higher Education. On the other hand, we are only one business school internationally recognized because we participate in association of European Business School. What is interesting, that I don't agree that all institutions are out of top ranking in Ukraine. For example, our 4 programs within 200 among all university and business schools in the world. Unfortunately, it's not the institution, but programs. It's financial management, marketing,
sorry,
and MBA.
but the question is, what do you think will happen during the next 2 years?
Yes, but listen, what I would like to say, that after world economic crisis, the share of foreign faculty decreased in our business school from 60 to 35%. And I hope that quite soon, maybe with participation of Norway University, we increase the international faculty up to 70%. And what else? That all our programs have a dual degree. It's MBA with the Marseille University, Magister with Rome Business School, and charter programs with London Charters Institution, and I hope maybe it will be an opportunity. We are looking at a partner to set up new magister program for anti-crisis management and security, and maybe it will be possible to find a partner in Norway.
Fine, thank you. Olena Orzel, what do you think will be the most important point of progress, the most important?
Universities, but as the representative of the National Erasmus Plus office, whatever we intend to do in our higher education, we do with international partners. So whatever I propose to do will be done, we hope, will be done with the support of EU partners, Norwegian partners, and other international partners. So I would like to focus on 3 words. One, on 3 principles maybe. One would be social responsibility. I think it is time for our universities to recognize their social responsibility. They have to understand that they are an important economic partners, that they should not wait for money, for funding from the government, but they should learn to generate money. They should learn to solve their problems themselves. They should practice and apply what they teach in universities. If they teach financial management, they should be properly managed. If they teach waste management, they should do it on their premises. If they teach sustainable development, they would try to be sustainable developed themselves. So social responsibility of universities, one point. And this would go, this responsibility should be inside the universities, but should also go into the community, locality where the universities are located, or should be practiced in society at large. The next principle I would call innovations and cooperation between business and university, mutuality, I would call it, meaning that universities and businesses can be equally benefit from cooperation, and again, universities for this should stop complaining that businesses do not help them. Businesses should stop complaining that universities teach students the wrong way. Businesses should open their doors and should allow universities to help modernize, to conduct administrative audit, to conduct energy audits in energy, and so on. And the third principle, I would say, innovations. I think it is time that in Ukraine, research and development and all research and studies should be demand-driven, not depending on the funding that the government will allocate, but dependent on the need. And from this, money would come not from money, but from what is necessary to do, what changes need to be done. And in this way, we also think cooperation of international partners is necessary.
Fine, thank you. Just keep the microphone. I got another question for you. What will you do tomorrow and next week to reach these goals?
Well, I have a very simple answer. Tomorrow we will go to Ternopil. There we will organize an information day where we will present the Erasmus Plus program. It will be the presentation for the whole day, not 10 minutes, but maybe 6 to 8 hours. On the next day, we will organize the training, how to prepare a good project proposal. That's what we do on a regular basis.
A very concrete plan. Thank you. Mr. Savchenko, what will you do next week and this week to reach this goal?
Firstly, I would like to say what the Ukrainian government should do. It's very important, unfortunately, but we have to decrease the number of state universities 3 times. We have 3 times more universities in Ukraine than average European country. This opened the door for private institutions like Mr. Logush institution, and it will be better competition, and I hope this competition will bring forward our institution and other internationally recognized business school at university.
Fine. We go further. You go back to Kristiansand tomorrow. What will you do tomorrow?
Probably I will try to catch up with my email, first of all, tomorrow. But I will me and my former colleague Anatoly, we already started to discuss these ideas today because we are not so large universities in Norway, so we have to cooperate. We have to use our advantages. Some of us are stronger in cooperating with CU, some of us are stronger in cooperating with European Union and Erasmus programs. So we probably will go and start to discuss how we can join our forces and use our partners in Ukraine. Our university has some partners, Buda has other partners, and we will probably catch up with Stavanger as well and try to do something within the Erasmus Plus framework.
Fine, thank you. Mr. Logers, what will you do tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow I have some meetings.
Dragon
conference. No, all joking aside, in February we're launching an MBA program, which is based on our comparative advantage in economics and quantitative skills. And what we're doing is looking for a partner in Europe. For our master's program, we have a partner, the University of Houston, which basically accredits our program, gives our students their master's in economics diplomas, accredits our faculty. But we'd like to do something similar in business. And I must tell you, I've always had a lot of respect for Norway. I think that Ukrainian-Norwegian ties go back to the 10th, 11th century, and there's no reason why the both of us on different edges of Europe shouldn't cooperate. And so any Norwegian university that would like to work with us, we'd be more than happy to work with you. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. Professor Bormistrov, what will you and the High North Center and the University of Nordland do tomorrow and next week?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
Because at least we have 3 projects which we would like to continue on, and this one is retraining military officers project, which we hope to submit application and for new 5 years. And I think it will be a very important project in terms of securing social aspects of retraining officers. The second project is, of course, trying to get this competence improvement project for public servants and to apply to Ministry of Foreign Affairs for funding. And the third one, it's our cooperation with Kyiv National University, where we could actually get some funding for developing further our ideas and ambitions in the public sector, accounting, budgeting, and finance. And of course, we are actually really open for any other cooperation. And probably have noticed that Norwegian-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce has a very nice project about young entrepreneurs. And who are the partners? We are partners. So even yes, and I think this will be our 4th project. So I think in this list could continue.
So you think your dreams will come true?
I think dreams will never come through on their own. You have to dream the dream.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have had a long day. Are there any questions to the panel or remarks? No, then I think I said thank you. Perhaps you will say something, Frode?
You agree on quite many things, but there are some elements where there might be differences. Should there be more private universities? Should there be more state universities? Should there be more specialized universities? Should there be more wide universities? So we can't solve that, but I'm sure this is an important discussion that will go on in Ukraine. It goes on all around the world. In Norway, we are discussing this every year. We are discussing all the universities, should they be better? Of course they should be better, but in what categories should they be better? What should be improved and so on? So I'm very happy that you are raising these questions, because in that way there will be a good discussion, and from the discussions we will get step by step into a better future. So thank you very much. But I saw that there was one who was so inspired that he would like to say something.
I was a student about 10 years ago, and then when you decide to go abroad, you go abroad for 2 reasons. Either it's because you're interested in the country. I went to Russia at the time, I was interested in the country. Most people in Norway who are interested in the country go to Australia because of the beaches. And then, or you go somewhere because the country is strong and a discipline where you can't get either stronger than in Norway, or you had the opportunity to study some disciplines that are where there's not that easy to get into the Norwegian program. For example, in Poland, people are doing medicine, So my sort of question to you is, what are the arguments in favor of studying in Ukraine? What are the disciplines where are you strongest, and what are the other, should I say, non-education related benefits of studying in the Ukraine? Thank you.
Who wants to answer?
Well, I can offer the Kyiv School of Economics. First of all of our education is in English. Our textbooks are in English. Our syllabi is in English. Curriculum approved by the University of Texas. Our faculty are listed with the faculty of the University of, Houston in Texas. So there's no language barrier. The knowledge that you gain is immediately useful back in Norway. It's a freely convertible education. And we will also be launching a business program along the same lines, as I mentioned. And I think Ukraine is a very exciting country because business prospects here are somewhere near ground level. So they have a long way to go. There's a lot of good experimentation that goes on in business here in terms of marketing techniques, sales strategies, and so on. And in terms of economics, this is an exciting laboratory for economists because it's a country that has economic difficulties. We have the challenge of reconstruction. We have the challenge of fast growth, the deregulation, economic reform. And I think European countries have regulatory issues as well, which sometimes constrain their business activities. So I think for all those reasons, this is an extremely exciting place to gain an education.
Thank you. As always, Anatoly, you get the last word.
Okay. Our experience is why students go abroad, why they go for joint degrees. And I think it's one of the things is excellence of the program. So we see that many students go to master degree abroad because they have experience international, had international experience from their bachelors. So they're not going for Australia for the beaches. They already were there in their bachelors. So now they start selecting and saying, why should we go to Ukraine? And I think if we have a program of excellence.
And I'm not sure whether Lil Hilda has arranged for gifts also to Bård, because, not to Bård. He will have a calendar, and also there are two in the panel. They will also have, so I'm very happy for that. Thank you very much. And I will end up this by first giving you an important message. That is from the organizer. You are all invited to be there for the plenary second session. It starts in about half an hour, 3:30. And you are all invited to be there for the seafood reception. We know that the Norwegian Prime Minister will be there. I assume also that the Minister of European Affairs of Norway, he will be there, and there will be a lot of important business people. And if we are there, then the very, very important people will be there. So thank you very much. But before I say goodbye, Nordland University has been cooperating with Ukrainian universities and institutions, IFSA for instance, for more than 10 years. And you have seen some of the results. One very important partner here in Ukraine is Taras Shevchenko National University of Kyiv. And this wonderful university that you all know, with this wonderful red building, celebrated 70 years just a few weeks ago. And we could not be there. So from the rector of University of Nordland, I will hand over a gift to your rector. So you have to give it to your rector. It is to your rector, so he could place it in the middle of his office somewhere. It was a faculty of economics. Okay, Olga is always the person with the right information. So then it will go to the dean. Pro-rector. Okay, this is difficult. Not the rector, not the dean, but something in between. That must be the vice rector. Okay, please, if you could take this gift. I think I have to show all, otherwise they will not know what it is. And they should know this, because here it is, and these are the colors of our logo. And do you know what that color means?
He guesses that that might be a northern light, which you might see when you come to the northern Norway. For instance, to do the...
Yeah, but it's not only the northern light. It is the sea, it is the mountains, it is the land, it is the sky. It is everything that we should work with. So congratulations. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, one more hand for the faculty. And then I'll see you all at the plenary session.